where we tackle the unspoken, uncomfortable, and unseen truth. Join Lynda Carmouche, your host, a licensed therapist, mental wellness strategist, and speaker, going beyond titles, addressing the emotional scars, hidden trauma, fears, and the silent battles many professionals face but rarely discuss. Come on in. The Elephant Room, where vulnerability meets strength. Hit subscribe and connect with hope, healing, and the courage to address the elephant in the room. Remember, the content here is for informational purposes only. Seek help from a qualified professional for mental health concerns, and discretion is advised for sensitive topics.
Welcome to the Elephant Room. I am Lynda Carmouche, your host, and today we're going to jump into a conversation that actually hits all of us. Either it has hit us, it is hitting us, or it will hit us. It's one of those conversations that we find very difficult to have, and a lot of the times we find it difficult because it forces us to go back and deal with some of our most painful events and experiences that we've had. And that is the fight with forgiveness. You see, forgiveness is not just a word, it's a journey. It's a struggle for some people. It's a confrontation with the deepest pains and hurts, some of the hardest memories, those things that we really want to get rid of, stuff in the back of the closet and never think of again. It's about facing what seems impossible. And many times we don't want to do that. Well, today I have the honor of speaking with Faidra Washington-Gray. She is the author of A Lesson Learned the Hard Way and the Answer to America's Labor Shortage, Reshaping Recruitment Through Second Chance Employment is her latest book, and we're going to talk about it. Faidra's story is one of resilience, strength, and the relentless pursuit of healing. Faidra took it upon herself to go after her own healing, and today we're going to talk about it. But before we delve into Faidra's incredible story, I want to take a moment to talk to you, my listeners, on a personal note. I want you to look in the mirror and I want you to see your own truth. What has forgiveness taken up residency in your heart, in your mind, even in your soul? How has it affected your own life, your relationships, how you do life, how you see people, how you deal with people, how you raise your children, how you show up in your career, your well-being? What part does forgiveness play in your life? As you listen today, allow yourself to confront these questions. Forgiveness is not about condoning or forgetting what happened. It's not about erasing the past, because you know it happened. You have the scars to prove it. But it's about freeing ourselves from the weight, from the chains of resentment, the chains of hate, the chains of anger. It's about allowing ourselves to leave the prison that we are now in and experience freedom. I want to give you a little bit about Faidra. She is a soldier of the Lord who fights with perseverance, faith, and forgiveness. And she is passionate about others, helping them to fulfill their own life, regardless of what they have experienced. She has turned her heartbreak into testimony and her tragedy into triumph. And y'all had better buckle your seatbelts, because you're about to be in for a ride. She has a passion to help others who might feel that there is no way out, that whatever happened to them, it's the end. She's a dynamic force behind Freedom Fulfilled Consulting, and we've already talked about her books, and we're going to talk about them a little bit deeper in a little while. After having faced difficulties securing employment post-incarceration, Faidra is driven by relentless determination. She returned to academia, got her master's in business administration that became both a shield and a key to unlocking doors that were once closed in her face. She is a great person. She's a great woman. She's a great author. With over 15 years of experience as a recruiter, you can find her advocating for the unlikely candidate, the person that people gave up on. That's who she's advocating for. Those that think you're not worth it. Those are the people that Faidra are advocating for. Just because you have a blemish on your record, she wants you to know that all is not lost. You are a viable candidate for the workforce. You can find her visiting the prisons to inspire and encourage them to look beyond their current situation. Faidra, welcome to the Elephant Room. We want to talk about it.
Hey, how y'all doing?
I am so super excited that you are here and that we get the opportunity to just dig in and have some real conversation about your journey, what it looked like, what it felt like for you. Because I think oftentimes we see people, especially business owners, and we think, oh, they have it so good. They've never gone through anything. They've never experienced anything. But you have an incredible story about resilience and transformation. Give us a little bit of it.
So, thank you so much for having me on, Lynda. It is a pleasure to speak about my journey. First off, I want to say we should never judge a book by its cover. A lot of times we look at people where they are now, but we never know what it took for them to get to that place. A lot of people, when I tell them, I spent 4.5 years in prison, they be like, huh? You don't look like you've been to prison. What does a person who look like they've been in prison look
That's
like?
good.
And so now, I've persevered, and I work in corporate America. Despite the statistics, I have my own business, and they look at me now, and they never think about all that I've had to go through to get here. And so, just to take you back and tell you more about what happened and how I ended up in prison. So I was the girlfriend of a drug dealer, basically in college, and I thought it was cool at that time. I was naive, and I did not understand how much trouble I was actually in the situation when everything went down. I did not know that because I had knowledge of what was going on, that I was actually guilty. And so during that time and going to court, and you know I had so many feelings when it came to my boyfriend at the time, because I felt like you didn't protect me, you know and I had this resentment built up in my heart that was so huge that I cursed them the day that I got sentenced. When the judge sentenced me to 70 months in prison, I cursed them. And just to tell you about the story of how everything went down, I was dating.
Hold up, Faidra, hold up. Because I don't know if I can hold my peace any longer. Hold up, we got to back this train up.
Mhm.
You're telling me, because I was that kid that went to university and I hadn't had a lot of experience and I was naive and, well, I guess people would say green for
Yes.
those that don't resonate with naive. There was a
Hmm.
lot of things I didn't know.
Hmm.
You're saying what you don't know can hurt you.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
because of the knowledge you had about this person that you cared, loved, was committed to,
Hmm.
you was in as much heat because of the knowledge you carried about this person in their dealings,
Yes, absolutely.
which could have happened to any one of us. In college, We take
Yeah.
chances and we hanging out and,
Yeah.
we're at people's houses. We don't know what they're doing. It looks a little flaky over there, but that ain't my business.
Uh-huh. That was the exact sentiments. That's none of my business. That's what he doing. It had nothing to do with me.
Wow. Wow. And so this naive girl who has gone to college to make life better for herself finds herself in a relationship that ultimately costed her a price that she never imagined paying, is what I hear you saying.
Absolutely. I didn't go to college with the intention of coming out leaving a convicted felon.
Wow. Wow. I can see why you use all your adult words in court
Mm-hmm.
that day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I just needed to know that. You can continue.
So what happened was his friend was basically the runner for him, and I was going to school at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. So what they would do, they would call it suicides, and so they would drive to Miami and drive back. So his runner that was driving, they didn't leave at the same time. So my boyfriend got back before he did, and so he was kind of concerned because he was like, okay, it's taking him too long, whatever. He said, but it'll be okay. So he comes to me and he say, hey, I need to return his rental car because they would rent two vehicles and run and then come back. And I was like, well, you need to hurry up. I got to go to class this morning, blah, blah, blah. So we take the rental car back, and then I'm dropping him off at his house. And at the time that I'm dropping him off at his house, DEA agents come out of everywhere. Like they had parked like two houses down. They had a U-Haul truck, and they came up out of the U-Haul truck.
Help my people know what DEA stands for.
Drug Enforcement Agency.
Are they local, from the local police department,
No,
or
federal. That
okay,
is federal.
okay,
Hmm.
okay? Because we got to make it real plain.
Yes,
The feds
and
came in.
it was federal because his runner had got pulled over for speeding and got nervous, and they called out the drug dog, and they found 8 kilos of cocaine. So it was the amount of drugs involved that made it federal.
And you the girlfriend, not running
And
nothing.
I ain't touched nothing. I ain't had my hands on nothing. No money, no drug, no nothing. I just know what they're doing. So when I pull up, they, like I said, they came from out of everywhere. It looked like a U-Haul truck was at that house. They come up out of the U-Haul truck, and it basically telling me to get out on the ground, pull the car door open, get down on the ground, get down on the ground. And they're asking the runner, who is she? And he says, that's his girlfriend. She know all about his business. And so those words, because he had turned state evidence, was what had me indicted.
Wow. And you were how old at this time?
I was 20.
So for all of our listeners
I
that
actually was 19 at the time, sorry. 19.
so for all of our listeners that think because you're not 21, you're protected, this is a life lesson that you're not.
No. Mm-mm.
That you're not.
The federal, they don't care how old you are. They don't care what type of paraplegic, blind, mental illness. They don't care anything about that. You can go to prison.
Wow. So you went through all of the court proceedings, had to get an attorney.
Hmm.
I mean, at 20, I'm sure you couldn't afford your own attorney. So now there's a burden on family. And, this doesn't just impact the person who's going through it.
No, it does not.
Everybody who is attached to you at this point has been shaken.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that you are an innocent girl who is now thrown into a system that you know nothing about.
Nothing.
Can you recall the emotions that you think you were feeling at this time?
Oh, disappointment, anger, bitterness, scared of the unknown. I wasn't sure. I did not know.
Yeah.
I had so many emotions. But one thing I can say that when I look back over the situation, God had angels there to protect me every step of the way.
Wow.
Because it doesn't matter every facility that I went to. So when they first locked me up, they put me in a camp. It was a older lady that had been there for some time that took me under her wings and showed me, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, who to stay away from. Even when they transferred me to the prison in Fort Worth, Texas, I had somebody else, that older lady, took me under her wings, did the same thing. And so I can say that throughout my journey that God was with me, and protected me every step of the way.
It's difficult when you're going through a tough situation to see God.
Hmm.
It's hard. But for you to
Hmm.
be able to, even if you didn't know it in that moment, to look back and say, you know what, this is an unfair situation.
Hmm.
I probably did not expect to be in this ever, but wow, look at the people God has placed in my path to cover me, to protect me, to make sure that I don't go over in the corner that I shouldn't go in and be harmed in the process of going through this undesirable situation.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah. I was raised in a church, and so I knew at that point in time I didn't have nothing but time on my hands. So, you know, um, my relationship with the Lord grew. Um, I would say I directed the choir. I was on the dance team. I did all types of things to keep myself, um, my mind right during that particular time. And I never thought of forgiving the two that I cursed.
I see you going there already. Already. This is
Yeah.
good. This is good because when we struggle with forgiving somebody who has hurt us,
Hmm.
we have to know that that's not always where we started.
Oh no,
There was
absolutely
a
not.
time where I wanted to take you out with my bare hands,
Hmm.
but over time, you're going to share with us how you got from I don't want to be bothered, you all hurt me and got me here to where you are now. This is beautiful. This is a beautiful transformation of your journey. Talk to us, Faidra.
So, like I said, I was really deep into, the church and just getting my life right. I didn't understand at the time why I was going through this, but I knew it wasn't for in vain. I knew that God had a plan for me. I just didn't understand what the plan was. Even after getting out of prison, I can still say I had that bitterness and anger toward them. And I did not know um, how I would react if I saw them or came in contact with them. I had thoughts of scratching their eyes out, spitting in their face, and like, how could I hurt them without going back to prison again? I had those types of thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was, I have sickle cell anemia. And after I had got out of prison, I guess the stress from the transfer, just changing life and, looking for a job and being stressed and things like that, I got really sick. And I had to get a blood transfusion. And the amount of blood that I had to have, the hospital basically said, look, you guys need to throw a blood drive on her behalf, or you're going to have to pay $10,000 per pint of blood. So my family got together, they did a blood drive, and my cousin had it on his Facebook page. And this is years later. I get a phone call from my cousin, and he say, "Hey, somebody from your past is on the phone," and I'm like, "Okay." And so he connected the line, and the person says, "Hello," and I says, "Hello," and it was my co-defendant, the runner, that said, "That's the girlfriend, and she know all about his business." And I got real quiet on the phone, and my cousin said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm good." I said, "Do you have a number where I could call you back?" Is what I told him. And I'm gonna use the name Fatty. I told Fatty, you know, "Do you have a number I could call you back?" So my cousin hangs him up and he said, "Are you good?" I said, "I'm good. I'm gonna handle this. I'm gonna call you back in a little bit." So I called Fatty and I started talking to him, and he starts to apologize.
So wait a
And
minute, wait a minute. Up till this point, you've gotten convicted, you've
mhm,
gotten sentenced, you went to
mhm,
prison,
I've
transferred
come.
through the process, done your time,
Mhm,
got home, trying to do
mhm.
life, but because of the system, couldn't find a job, stressed out, got sick, and this person, Fatty, reaches out to you.
Yep. Mhm,
And you all get on the phone and he starts apologizing without you saying anything about an apology.
mm, mhm. Yeah. He just kept apologizing, and the conversation felt kind of weird, honestly, because I was just like, he told me that he had been dealing with pancreatic issues because he had drank himself so much, because of the guilt that he was over the years, and he knew what he had did to my life, and he just was apologizing, and he was he was sick and all this other kind of stuff, and I told him that I forgive you. you know
Wait a minute. Where did that come from?
I don't know. Because I can't tell Linda, I can't tell you if he would have called me a day, an hour, a minute, a second sooner, I would have responded the same way. But at that moment, I told him, I forgive you. And at that moment, I felt a weight lift off of me.
Wow. Which confirms what I've been saying all week is that unforgiveness carries a heaviness,
Hmm.
a physical heaviness on our body, on our
Hmm.
minds, on our souls. But you're telling me in that moment, you said it to him with
Hmm.
sincerity
Hmm.
and you felt lighter.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Immediately. And
Wow.
it was like no emotion with it. Like I was holding the phone, I was listening to him, and it was like, okay. It was like I was at
Wow.
total peace. And I told him, I said, I forgive you. And so he asked if he could continue to reach out to me. And he did a couple of times, but every time he would call, he would go through this whole thing of, please forgive me, please forgive me. And I had to tell him, look, don't call me no more. I've told you that I've forgiven you. I said, at this point, you need to forgive yourself.
This is a whole nother conversation we about to go on and jump into it. Because sometimes we're not forgiving people because they didn't come back and ask,
Hmm.
or and we're waiting on them. This
Hmm.
person asked you,
Hmm.
well, they didn't even ask you for forgiveness. He just said, I'm sorry. He apologized. You gave the forgiveness, but he still hadn't accepted the forgiveness.
No, he didn't.
And
And it
that
was eating him up.
that leads to another point we were going to talk about later is you got to forgive yourself. Sometimes it's not even about the other person.
Hmm.
You have to be able to say, I did this, I own this, this is how it's impacting me, and I got to forgive me, which is a
Hmm.
whole different thing than forgiving somebody else.
Hmm. Yeah. Because
But
I had to get to a place to forgive myself, because that's one of the hardest things. Sometimes, for me, sometimes I feel like when I look at people, it's easy for them to forgive others, but it's so hard for them to forgive themselves. And the reason why is because they accepted whatever that person was giving to them at that time. And they think about, the red flags was there. The opportunity was there for me to get out, because the red flags was there for me in that relationship. I had caught him cheating. I had been hospitalized behind the cheating because I had got depressed and all this other kind of stuff. So the signs were there before. They say there's before destruction, there is.
You get warnings. We all do. We all do.
And so I overlooked all the warnings. And then the ultimate destruction was going to prison for 4.5 years.
Ooh. That's heavy right there. That's heavy. That's heavy. How many times have we been warned? Mm-hmm. Not always about another person. Sometimes it's about something we're doing to ourselves. How many times have we been warned and we ignore the warning because we've gotten comfortable in it, or we accept whatever we're doing as now our norm, and then destruction comes. Mm-hmm. That's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's something that's a note taker right there. What are the areas in my life have I ignored the warning signs? And the warning signs come in all kinds of ways. If you've gone to the doctor and the doctor keeps saying you got to lose weight, your blood pressure's getting a little higher, your cholesterol's out of whack, those are warning signs. Mm-hmm. You say your warning signs came a little bit harder. You ended up in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then the destruction came. Mm-hmm. So that was the reconnection with you and the runner. Was there ever a reconnection with you and the boyfriend?
Yes. I went to a birthday party in Florida. And we had been talking on the phone here and there. Excuse me. And he had asked me if he could see me face to face. And I told him, when I come to Florida, I'll let you know. And so he came to...
Wait a minute. See you like reconnect? See you?
Face to face. He wanted to see me face to face. And my friend that I was going to her party, she was like, girl, I don't understand,
I'm over here praying right now, saying, Lynda, you on camera, you on live. See me.
Say, why is you going to, why is you trying to connect with this joker? And that's the nice way of putting it.
I was about to say, I know she had some adult words for you.
Yeah, she did. But I already knew for me what it was for.
Okay.
And so I let him know. I said, yeah, I'm going to be at this and this. So he met me at the airport. And I saw him and he apologized. And I was able to tell him that I forgave him. And we hadn't talked ever since.
Wait a minute. You're not going to skirt over that like that, Faidra. We're not doing this today. You said, I met him and told him I forgave. Forgave is I already did. Before you walked up in my face, Joker, why did you forgive him before he came to you and asked for forgiveness?
I knew, for me, I knew when I said yes to meeting him, for me, it was kind of closure for me. Even though nobody else understood, I knew what I was doing. And this was for me. I want you to look me in my face. And I want you to see that I'm doing real good without you. Wow. I'm doing real good despite the hell that I've been through. I'm doing real good. But I want to let you know that I forgave you.
Back there. It does not take a person coming back to you, the person who harmed you, the person who ripped your heart out, the person who stole from you, the person who left you destroyed, the person who did it, it does not take them coming back to you to ask in order for you to forgive. Forgiveness
Is a
is
choice.
here.
It's a
Yes,
choice.
and it's your choice to make. And when we choose not to forgive, we choose to stay in a prison that we hold the key to. Forgiveness is a choice. And I think we have accepted that forgiveness is hard. That's what we've accepted. Unforgiveness is hard. And it's heavy.
It weighs down on you.
Yes, and it impacts us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Forgiveness is a choice. Faidra said, I forgave him before I even met him. By the time she met him in the airport, that was her final, that was the period at the end of the, no, that was the exclamation mark at the end of the sentence to say, this is done. This is done. See that I made it through in spite of what I had to go through. That's major. That's major, Faidra. That's major.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people ask me, what do I contribute my success to? And I'm going to say forgiveness.
wow. So that would be your turning point. That would be your turning point. Do you feel, because you're successful, you're doing all kinds of things out here in this business world, you're impacting lives. And do you feel your life, your journey, your success, your impact would be different had you not forgiven?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the doors would have opened for me if I had held on to unforgiveness. The word of God tells us that we must forgive.
He didn't say if it's hard or who it
No,
was or what
we
they did.
must. We must.
That's good. That's so good.
So if I'm asking the Lord to do something for me and I can't do what he has placed in front of me to do, then what results would I get?
Ooh. So unforgiveness really becomes a stumbling block for me
Oh yeah.
doing and being what I have been purposed to do, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something that I find interesting about your journey. You wrote one book and it was talking about learning the hard way. And then you circled back and you wrote another book that addresses the labor issues in America.
Yeah.
You go into prisons right now and minister to prisons, but you also teach them life skills that help prepare them for when they come out. When we talk about trauma experiences, a lot of the times we wouldn't be able to go back into that setting because there was so much you experienced, you saw, you felt on your journey. How are you able to turn this tragedy into triumph, package it in a way to be able to serve people, prisoners?
Because once you forgive, you are free. Whom the Son set free is truly free indeed. So I had nothing holding me back, no bound, no change, no nothing. And so I had to look at my whole life and look and say, okay, God, I've made some mistakes, but what do you want me to do with all of this?
Wow.
What do you want me to do with all of this? I remember the struggle that I had before I wrote my first book. And it was like, I kept putting it off. God had told me to write that book long before it was out. And I kept putting it off and I kept putting it off. And he put me in a situation where I had to write it. And he was like, are you going to trust me? Because I was afraid of what everybody else was going to think about me once I shared my story.
Ooh, that's good. That's so good. That's so good. What impacted how you, what impacted your thoughts about what other people would think? Let's go on and be raw and real about it, because when you came home, you weren't
Mhm.
exactly accepted.
Mhm. Yeah, just telling my truth. This is a girl who basically was raised in a great home, had no kind of encounter with the law. Um, Only child, got everything that she wanted, went to the best of schools, was at school supposed to be getting her degree, end up in prison. And how are people gonna look at me if I tell my story about going to prison?
Wow.
Are they gonna point the finger at me? Will they accept me? Am I gonna get fired from my job once they found out the truth about me? You know? Um, we know when we fill out applications and stuff, that information is a done deal. HR know, but what others think about me when they read my story, hear about my story? So I was concerned about what others were thinking, and God was saying, I am who you're supposed to put your trust in, not them.
Ooh. Sometimes we got to be
So I
checked.
kept coming. I kept coming up with excuses. So you say I went back to school. So I went back to school. So during the time I was supposed to write this book, before I even went back to school, I was supposed to write the book. So I went back to school. Then I was like, well, God, I'm in school now. I ain't got time to do it. Blah 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 blah. Then I after I graduated, it was, well, God, I'm doing this, and I'm a manager at work, and I got so much of this, and blah blah blah. And then guess what? I got laid off from my job.
There we go. There we go.
So then he put me in a situation where I had to. I ain't had nothing but time and opportunity. So what I did, I wrote the book. But you know what? In that time that I was off work, I traveled. I went and saw family. I mean, I had so much fun. No one could believe it. You get laid off from your job, you think, you'll be stressed out. I wouldn't. I was living my best life. And you know what? When it was time, to the day, my last unemployment check, I got a job offer that same day. My
Wow.
last unemployment check, I got a job offer that
I
same
need to
day.
know if the book was written by the time you got
It
the
was
job
written. It was written.
offer.
It was written. It was written.
That's so good. That's so good. So, if you could give the listeners a
Mhm.
message of hope, you work
Mhm.
with and minister to men and women who, for whatever reason, they're in this position.
Mhm.
They oftentimes have lost hope.
Mhm.
They're behind bars, but sometimes we're not behind bars, but we're still imprisoned.
Yes,
A
in
lot
our
of the
mind.
times imprisoned by our thoughts, imprisoned
Mhm.
by the things that people have done to us, imprisoned by what society says about us, how other people see us, and it hinders us from going forward and doing the things that we genuinely desire and has been created to do. What would you say to that woman, that man, that boy, that girl who just needs a little bit of hope?
One, I'm gonna say, I know it hurts. And no matter how much it hurts, it will be so much better if you release that situation. Forgive yourself, forgive them. Because despising a situation or a person is only going to prolong your healing.
That's good.
It's only going to prolong your healing. When I tell you, when I forgave them, both of them, I can say that the floodgates opened for me when it came to opportunities. And I know it was nothing but God.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I relinquished control and said, Lord, this hurt me so bad, but I know I got to do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. I always like to share some practical tips
Mhm.
with how do you start to walk out forgiveness.
Mhm.
Phaedra has shared with us her story and the journey, and she lost some things, but she gained some things along the way. She talked
Mhm.
about protection even in the midst of going through. But I want to give you some practical tips. The first thing I want to give you, and not every tip is going to be for everybody. Take what will work for you. And I think that's one of the things we get caught up in. Oh, well, that ain't going to work. Well, nothing's going to work if you don't try. But what works for one person may not work for the other, but we can learn and tweak it and make it work for us. The first thing is acknowledge the pain. Accept and validate your feelings. Faidra said, I know it hurts. When a person has wronged us, hurt us, left us, abandoned us, rejected us, lied on us, didn't protect us, it does hurt. You have to be willing to say it hurt. Faidra talked about all the feelings that she experienced, but underneath that, she said, I was hurt. Yeah, I was angry. I was bitter. I was frustrated. I was all the things. I was scared, but I also was hurt. So accept and validate your feelings. Recognize the hurt and how has it impacted your life? How has it set up residency? Sometimes we accept that feeling for so long that it becomes our norm. And we say things like, well, that's just who I am, or that's how it's always been. But it doesn't have to always be what it's always been. You hold the key to unlock that door. Ignoring it and minimizing your pain is just going to hinder the process of forgiveness. And remember, forgiveness is not for them. Faidra didn't forgive them because she needed them to be well. That was about her. It's about us. Understand that forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. Get you some support. I don't know if you missed it or not, but even when she was in prison, she had support. Mm-hmm. Support is major. And sometimes we base our support on the person and their journey. Sometimes people haven't gone through what you've gone through, but they can still support you in a very healthy way. Other times we get support that is not reliable support. Okay? If you're going to someone and you're trying to share your deepest, darkest pain and they're minimizing it, that's not your support. You might have to get you some support that's outside of your circle. And that's okay too. Practice being empathetic. Try to understand, as hard as it is, what's going on with that other person. I know for my own journey, there are some people, many people I've had to practice forgiveness that hurt me real bad. But when I slowed up and I looked at their own journey, I realized they did the best they could, and I was collateral damage. As hard as that pill is to swallow, sometimes people did the best they could with what they had, and they hurt us. It doesn't take away the hurt, but you got to see it for what it is. Okay? Set some boundaries. We think forgive and forget. Faidra ain't forgot nothing. She wrote a book about it. You don't have to forget it, but when you use it as the lens you begin to see life through, that's different than not forgetting it. It should not be something that live in the forefront of your mind. Set some boundaries. If you forgive someone, it doesn't mean you have to be their best friend. Again, you can forgive them and dismiss yourself from continuing to interact. Take care of you. Faidra, you said something that was so powerful, and I cannot end this broadcast without going back. You said, I did everything I could to protect my mind while I was in prison. Your mind. Take care of your mind. Take care of your emotions. Take care of yourself. You cannot lose you in the process. Sometimes we get so caught up with the person who hurt us, we lose who we are. Take care of you. Okay? This was so good, Faidra. This was so good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in the Elephant Room, talking about your journey, your transition, how you have taken and transformed a tragedy into triumph. It's amazing. I want you to give a final message to the people.
I'm going to say that for me, the three things that I can say that truly helped me along my journey is forgiveness, faith, and perseverance. And if you have those three, I do not care what it is, what the situation is, you can get through it. Forgiveness, faith, and perseverance.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So good. Thank you all for joining us tonight in the Elephant Room, where we aim to heal the person behind the title, whatever title it is you're carrying. We're pulling it back so that you can heal. Thank you, Faidra, for joining us in the Elephant Room. Make sure you follow Faidra on all social media platforms. Make sure you buy her book. The link will be at the bottom after the broadcast. Make sure you go support her. We appreciate you. We appreciate you letting us into your journey and sharing those nuggets. Until next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Elephant Room. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more powerful insights, down-to-earth conversations, and the courage to face whatever comes your way. This is where vulnerability meets strength and transformation gets real.